Hey, what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan. I'm the mind behind Make More Capital, and today we're coming at you with this week in cannabis news from June 20th to the 26th. Now, before we jump in, if you enjoy this video or you learned something, please just leave a like on it as it really helps out my channel. And of course, if you want to learn how to take advantage of this generational investment opportunity, subscribe below so that you don't miss any future videos. I've tried to put all the news and facts in one place so that you can watch episodes over time to learn about the evolution of the industry, identify top companies that you keep seeing pop up, and take advantage whenever you feel ready if you wish to do so. And with that, we're going to start with the unfortunate news we got as we get another big slap in the face from Chuck Schumer. Reported first from Punchbowl News on U.S. cannabis. Thanks, Todd Harrison, for sharing that cannabis banking and climate provisions have been left out of the USICA bill. So while the America Competes Act and USICA bill is arguably our best shot to date at getting some form of the Safe Banking Act attached to a larger piece of legislation that could have passed, sadly, Chuck Schumer just shows us yet again his true colors in that he does not work for the American people, but he works for big pharmaceutical companies that pay him pennies in order to delay any form of incremental legislation. But it's not all bad. We'll get to some other positive news that comes from this. But, of course, we did have to plan for the worst, and the Big Four, Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, and House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy met this week to begin powering back the USICA bill in a bid to pass it before the August recess. And we hear there has begun progress on several fronts. However, one of the amendments to get the cut, the Safe Banking Act legislation that would allow banks to handle money from cannabis businesses, has been dropped from the package. This was a GOP demand. Now, obviously, that's another way for Schumer to show that it wasn't actually his fault, that it was the Republicans that didn't allow it through. Not going to buy that crap anymore, but regardless, all we need to know is that SAFE does not make it into this version of the bill. While this does suck and it's extremely frustrating for us that have been at this for a long time, it does not change the facts on the ground and that the fundamentals of these US MSOs, especially the tier ones, are very solid. These are some of the fastest growing American-made companies in the entire country. And so while the share prices do not reflect the fundamentals of these companies, at some point they likely will. And if you do not solve the problem, sadly, the issue continues. As another, thank you, Joe Grazer, for sharing this, Oklahoma City police looking to identify suspect in dispensary robbery. So just another example of when you don't provide the solution, the problem will continue. And at some point, we're going to need the Safe Banking Act, right? And so with that, I did want to share this one from Tom Engel because, and according to Tom, this is big, so I'll take Tom's word for it. Rep. Troy Carter and G. Reschenthaler just filed a bipartisan bill that would allow state legal cannabis businesses to list on stock exchanges like the NASDAQ and NYSE. So is it possible that this bill could be an added ingredient to a potential omnibus cannabis bill since, of course, SAFE was pulled from the America Competes and USICA? Who knows? But this is obviously better than not getting this sort of news. So I wanted to share this as cannabis businesses could be listed on stock exchanges and access financial services under new bipartisan bill. And while after all this time, we hate to see the words could be in another headline, especially for Marijuana Moment, because all it really does is get our hopes up. Obviously, if you can zoom out and look at the bigger picture, cannabis businesses will be listed on stock exchanges at some point. So could this be the missing ingredient that actually improves the situation and allows uplisting sooner than later that SAFE didn't actually have? Well, we'll find out. But the Capital Lending and Investment for Marijuana Businesses CLIMB Act is being sponsored by Reps. Troy Carter and Guy Reschenthaler. And while a main thrust of the legislation is to free up cannabis industry access to financial lending and investment opportunities, in part by providing protections for private financial institutions and government agencies that provide such services to traditional markets, one section stands out as especially novel. It would provide safe harbor for national securities exchanges and market participants that have listed, list, or intend to list, or permits the trading or facilitates the offering, listing, or trading on a national securities exchange of the securities of cannabis-related legitimate business or a service provider. So this could be even better than the plain safe language that was pulled out of the USICA bill. Now, again, we don't know, and I'm not an expert on this. I'm just sharing the news that we have as of Thursday, but that's a wordy way of saying that cannabis businesses would be permitted to list on major stock exchanges like NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange. It would represent a boon for the burgeoning industry, legitimizing their presence on Wall Street. And so this would be a big deal, and imagine this paired with SAFE could obviously be a game changer, but just wanted to share this as it's a bit more information highlighting how it is actually very similar to SAFE already, but then it has that other thing that other aspect that I just read previously. So you can pause to read this. Otherwise, you can grab the whole link below. But just wanted to share that as that is great news to offset the unfortunate, reality that SAFE was pulled from USICA again. And so with that, wanted to share some snippets from investment firms. This one, thank you for Todd Harrison for sharing from BTIG on US Cannabis from Camilo. And so this is from the last quote at the bottom. We remain steadfast in our view that federal cannabis reform will occur this year, which we expect will lead to a significant re-rating in U.S. MSOs. And so I've been saying this, the stage is set. And again, while we should have anticipated SAFE to be pulled out of that final version of the bill, there is still time from now until November. And while the Dems have done nothing, it just gives them more of an incentive to try and get some bipartisan effort done. And obviously, many potential outcomes. We just have to wait and see how this will play out. But no surprise, SAFE stripped out of competes, but it will likely climb onto the NDAA. Why it didn't pass last year, but they think it'll pass this year, I don't necessarily know why they're confident, but you can pause to read to get their rationale on that. And so with that, just to highlight at the bottom, with so much momentum in DC around cannabis legislation, we are reluctant to think that it will result in a nothing done outcome. We admit the clock is ticking until the midterms, but in our view, too much is happening at the right time with the right proponents backing the right issues. And that's similar reason as to why I'm still confident with that, but just wanted to share that as you can pause to read and just to get a bit of a take on what BTIG thinks about the situation. Now with that, more of a bearish view, this one shared from Weed Street 420, so thanks Weed Street 420 for sharing. Viridian Capital Advisors, their 5 predictions for the second half of 2022. They come with a much more bearish case, highlighting they believe SAFE will not pass, that federal legislation will not happen, that they have a bearish outlook for investor returns, that valuations will remain depressed for the year, and that further stock declines likely in connection with broader market weakness. And so this comes from Viridian Capital Advisors. So you can pause to read, otherwise if it's not very clear, you can grab the link below. But just keep in mind that these are from investment firms, and while they likely have a lot more information than we do in order to make these decisions or come to these conclusions, it's still speculation and they don't know what's going to happen either. And so we've got one firm saying they're bullish, one saying that they're bearish, and so that's why I just want to present as many sides to you as possible so you can make the best decisions for your own self. So don't take them as true. Here's another one. Thanks, Todd, for sharing. HedgeEye Cannabis on Safe Banking. And with Safe Plus, no reason to get too excited about what's happening in DC, but things are moving in the right direction. HedgeEye shares a snippet from Politico, and it reads, "The change in approach is driven in part by the fact that the clock is ticking on Democratic control of Congress." And that sort of echoes what we heard from Camilo from BTIG. Experts say the House will likely flip in November and the Senate could join it. And despite the often bipartisan nature of cannabis legislation, I wouldn't say that it's often bipartisan, it does not, well it should be, it does not enjoy strong support from GOP leadership in either chamber. And so lawmakers involved in weed policy are looking more seriously at what they can accomplish in the last 6 months of Congress, which is basically from now until November, as things will heat up. And so I wanted to share this one from Brady Cobb, who is one of the insider lobbyists on the ground in DC that's been at this since 2014. And while he's made many calls in the past, he does continue to stand by any calls that he makes. And so mad respect to Brady for sharing his information with us. But SAFE out of competes this time per the Republicans, or that's the excuse that they put out to the public so that they don't have to blame Schumer again. The removal was part of the paring down process to get competes passed by August. So obviously they had a deadline to get that bill passed. And there is a well-reported push to add hope and another plus bipartisan to create a broader package for NDAA or Approps. I own it, still long onward. And could this potential new package include that new legislation that would allow these companies to uplist? We don't know, but the fact that this legislation was even introduced and the timing of it should make for a very interesting second half of the year. And as Brady does say, there is a well-reported push to add hope plus other pieces to create a broader package. We see the same thing highlighted here in this Politico article, as it seems like the Dems want to push out the greater narrative that they're coming back for another attempt at some form of cannabis legislation. Titled, "Dems are looking for a weed deal. As this Congress enters its final month, lawmakers warm to the idea of cannabis banking plus." Now, we're all aware of this, so I'm not going to go through this whole article, but you can grab the link below if you wanted to read about it, because it is it's good awareness that we want to see that the Dems are actually going to try something positive for cannabis, which they have had a lot of time to do and have not done. And so this article is actually where that snippet that HedgeEye grabbed that piece from that I just read, a few minutes ago. And so anyways, you can grab the link below if you're interested, but this is another one from the National Law Review. And while this one was written earlier this week, so Tuesday, June 21st, it was published before we got the news that SAFE was pulled out of the USICA America Competes Act. Cannabis banking, will the Safe Banking Act finally pass? Well, we know it will not pass in the America Competes Act. However, the National Law Review does write some pretty good and well-detailed articles. So if you don't necessarily know what safe banking could have done or what it could have changed, I would just recommend pausing to read this snippet here as an overview of federal anti-money laundering laws. And so why Safe Banking Act would be practical for these cannabis companies and why that could potentially lead to changing of guidance from FinCEN and AML, I think it is AML, to potentially allow to uplisting. And so again, it was before we also got the news of that new bill that could potentially lead to uplisting. But so you can pause to read for an overview of federal anti-money laundering laws if you're interested. And then you can read to learn about the Safe Banking Act if you're not familiar with it, although anyone watching this has likely watched a lot more of my videos. But you can pause to read. And then lastly, will the Safe Banking Act pass? Again, it's a question we hate to ask because none of us have the answer. You can pause to read for a little bit more on the history and how far we've come to get to where we are today. Well, we've got this one from Tom Engel as today, June 22nd, which was Wednesday, I believe, the House Appropriations Committee posted spending bill reports that include very little based on what he reported the week before that it could have included, including banking, criminal justice, other efforts. Sadly, all it included were provisions on hemp industry challenges, CBD marketing, medical cannabis for veterans, and research on the therapeutic benefits of cannabis and psychedelics. This is potentially the only win out of it, but still, why do you keep failing the American people? Come on, House Appropriations Committee. And with that, got this one from Todd Harrison sharing good news, though, out of Pennsylvania, as Pennsylvania cannabis banking bill clears the House committee after passing the full Senate. So it's another example of states working to protect financial institutions that service cannabis companies as Congress stalls on a federal fix. And so while Congress does not pass the Safe Banking Act, individual states like PA are taking it into their own hands. So I will report on this once it becomes official, but great to see that it is moving through Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania. And with that, this one comes from Foley Hoag LLP, so I believe this is probably a law publication. But with that, from June 16th, a bit older, but highlighting that Massachusetts may decouple from Section 280E, another brutal hindrance that only affects cannabis companies because of the double standard and discrimination towards cannabis. Key takeaways: Massachusetts is on the brink of becoming the next member of a growing number of states that are decoupling from Section 280E, the federal tax law that severely limits the extent to which cannabis-related businesses can deduct expenses for income tax purposes. And that is what leaves cannabis companies right now paying double the tax than any other industry in America. It's criminal. And if pending legislation is enacted, such limitations would not apply for Massachusetts state income tax purposes, leading to potential tax relief for Massachusetts cannabis-related businesses. And so while 280E affects them at the federal level, and that's why we want that gone, and obviously, larger versions of SAFE could have included language that removed 280E, and while that was not what was included in USICA or America Competes Act, obviously we're just hopeful to see states take initiative as the federal government keeps dragging on and Congress does nothing. And so with that, you can just pause to read if you want to learn more a bit of the situation in Massachusetts. I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but obviously it's just good to see some states taking initiative and trying to help the cannabis industries in their states thrive. Well, I got this one from Todd Harrison sharing that Illinois awards $45 million in cannabis tax-funded grants to support communities damaged by the drug war. So we're proud to use community revenue to directly support community-based organizations invested in creating opportunity. And so obviously I don't know the details on how they do this. You can probably grab the link below and I'll actually just put it in the description so you can pull from that if you're interested. But just highlighting that the benefits of ending cannabis prohibition, now Illinois has got $45 million in extra cash that they can just throw at trying to help communities that have been damaged by the unfortunate war on drugs that have affected them for so long. And so with that, on to some state news. Office of Medical Cannabis Use for the state of Florida. If we look at the following dispensing locations were approved by the department for the week of June 20th to the 24th. So with that, Green Dragon, I don't know the company behind them, but they've opened 2 new locations in Ocala and in Stewart. So with that, if we look at the qualified patient count for this past week, they increased their qualified patient count to 732,390, which represents an increase of 2,231 patients week over week. So good to see the growth continuing and increasing a little bit by bit there. And if we look at dispensations for June 17th to the 23rd, we can see all the MSOs that operate in the state. We can see the number of dispensing locations that they have, the number of milligrams of THC that they sold from this time, the number of milligrams of CBD that they sold, and the number in ounces of smokable flower. And so we can see strong sales across the board. Nonetheless, as time goes on, Florida continues to grow and they continue to see strong demand for a safer, non-addictive medicinal alternative to opioids. And with that, Chris Norman shares some good news out of New Jersey, as apparently approval of Verano's 3rd adult legal store in Neptune near New Jersey Shore is likely, maybe a July 4th weekend grand opening, pending the approval during this Thursday session, Thursday, June 30th, public meeting at 1 p.m. from the New Jersey Regulatory Commission. So also likely to get results from the 2nd month of New Jersey adult use legal sales at this meeting. And so I will share the adult use legal sales from New Jersey once those get posted as well, because obviously I imagine they're going to be strong and they will likely beat what we saw in April, even with 420. Now it's a bold claim, but we're going to have to wait and see. Regardless, I will share that when that comes, but good news to see that things are chugging along in New Jersey. And so with that, on to this one from the Dales Report, sharing that Jason Wild does not stop buying shares of TerrAscend. And so, well, the share prices over the last 15 months have not given us too much confidence. Thank you, Jason G. Wild, for stepping up and continuing to dollar cost average and buying shares of TerrAscend at a discount. Because if he believes they're going to be around for a long time and that they're going to be worth a lot more in the future than they are now, hence why he's buying shares, that likely applies to all the Tier 1 MSOs as well. So good to see the one person you don't want to be against in the sector continuing to fire away. So just showing that he continues to add shares week over week as time goes on and as we do head through these difficult times in the dog days of summer. And with that, from Houston Chronicle, though, the good news is Houston's first medical cannabis pickup store offers gummies, lozenges, and other cannabis products. Houston's first permanent brick and mortar pickup location for prescription cannabis opened Tuesday, which is a big victory for the normalization of medical cannabis in Houston, despite Texas having some of the strictest medical cannabis laws. Get a load of this. The pickup process will be similar to home delivery. Patients will need to provide their prescription and ID and answer a few basic questions to verify their ID, Denton said. The process will take less than 5 minutes. While state regulations prohibit Texas Originals from storing medical cannabis at a new location, so the Houston location will not be able to take walk-in orders for same-day pickup, Denton said. And any prescriptions that are scheduled for pickup will need to be shipped each day from the company's Austin dispensary, almost as if they're dealing with some toxic biohazard that is medical cannabis. But good news, Texas Originals has 13 pickup locations across the state. And so this is just a start, and think it is really only up from here as we see the normalization of cannabis across the country, but in Texas, a state with 29 million people. It's going to be a massive market for adult use eventually, but also medical. But many of them, including in Katy and North Houston, offer once a week pickup at places, including doctor's offices. warehouses. And so the new Houston location is the company's first permanent storefront. Patients can also pick up from the Austin dispensary. So good to see this sort of pilot project that was started in Austin move to other cities across the state like Houston, and hopefully it'll continue to expand. Well, Tom reports Nebraska activists announced they've collected 120,000 signatures to put medical cannabis initiatives on the November ballot, but are begging voters to help get the tens of thousands more they need to qualify before a deadline in the next 2 weeks. So sounds like you're not finished your work. Stop talking, get to collecting signatures. But good luck, Nebraska activists. Hope you can get this done and get that question on the ballot. It seems like you're already halfway there. While big news, Tom Engel reports that the MLB is now allowing baseball teams to be sponsored by CBD companies. Unfortunately, not cannabis companies yet, but it's a small step in the right direction, as obviously the MLB has major influence across the U.S., and obviously if they can support CBD companies, that's going to help normalize cannabis, at least in the sporting niche, as well as it slowly but surely is being normalized. And so with that, National Library of Medicine wanted to share this study, as apparently lower rates of hepatocellular carcinoma observed among cannabis users, a population-based study. And so hepatocellular carcinoma, HCC, is one of the most common malignancies worldwide and the fourth leading cause of cancer deaths in the world. The association between HCC and cannabis has been identified in mice. However, to our knowledge, it has not been identified in humans. Therefore, we aim to investigate the relation between HCC and cannabis use in humans. And so we can pause to read the methods and the results. In the conclusion, based on our large database analysis, we found that cannabis use patients were 55% less likely to have HCC, or in other words, the fourth leading cause of cancer, compared to patients without cannabis use. And so further prospective studies are needed to assess the role of cannabis use on HCC. And so again, those sound like obviously positive conclusions that cannabis could have medicinal benefit to preventing HCC, and people that use cannabis seem to obviously have less of a chance of getting HCC than people that don't use it. So with that, even more evidence that highlights the best thing we could do for the American people and the plant is to just deschedule it from the CSA so that we can normalize framing studies that actually look for the potential positive benefits of medical cannabis and the plant versus framing them to look for the risks and harms like many of the studies in the past have done. And so while the US government has been looking for a very long time to try and find harms and risks associated, fortunately, they haven't been able to, and that's what allowed us to get to where we are today. And so with that, just wanted to share some other news as U.S. Cannabis Council shares. And unfortunately, while I'm sharing this, you obviously got to feel bad for the guy, but at the same time, don't think the U.S. has any moral high ground over Russia in this situation, and likely anyone caught traveling with medical cannabis in their luggage where they shouldn't be would likely be going to jail as well. But with that, former American diplomat Mark Fogel has been sentenced to 14 years in Russian prison for traveling with 0.6 ounces of medical cannabis in his luggage. This should not be happening anywhere in the globe, but if the U.S. is not going to take initiative and deschedule cannabis first, then the rest of the world is not going to follow. And so with that, we urge POTUS to do everything in his power to seek the safe return of Fogel, Brittany Griner, and other Americans caught up in politically motivated prosecutions. Yeah, you think this is going to make a difference when the Biden administration campaigned on descheduling, possibly, decriminalizing at the federal level, legalizing medical at the federal level, yet they've kept none of those promises. So for those reasons, I really don't think this is going to amount to much, but hopefully I can be proven wrong. But good on you, U.S. Cannabis Council, for trying to spread awareness and share this guy's story. But the Biden admin has not given a fuck until now. They're likely not going to give a fuck until November. And so with that, moral of the story is unfortunately you still just can't travel internationally with cannabis, especially to Russia, or likely 2 for 2 American big names, you're going to get caught. And so with that, Duke of Wall Street sharing a thread. Let's forget reform nonsense and remind ourselves what MSOs look like right now. Back to focusing on the fundamentals. As Trulieve, Green Thumb, and Verano all forecasted to grow top line at a 20% compounded annual growth rate from 2021 to 2024. All three are currently trading at a 10% plus 2023 operational cash flow yield and sub 5.5x 2023 enterprise value divided by EBITDA. And so this comes from Duke of Wall Street, an experienced Wall Street equity research analyst, according to his Twitter bio. CFA, according to his Twitter bio, focused on finding multi-baggers. Advice is my own views. Please do your own due diligence. And so with that, he does share a thread of the reality of the fundamentals and the situation on the ground. Not what we're seeing in the share prices, but that is what creates opportunity. And so with that, we can pause to read some of his thread. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but growth drivers include new states coming online, both medical and recreational, eventual share gains from illicit market, increasing the percentage of population who will consume, new formats like edibles, drinks, etc., and obviously M&A, as some will expand internationally as well. Curaleaf's already taken that step. But just a reminder, many of these growth drivers are organic and will just happen over time as states reform their laws and launch adult use programs, which as a byproduct will eat into the illicit markets. And so with that, you can pause to read from these businesses down to consumer staples like Coke and Pepsi. Just pause to read there. And then just another snippet. You can pause to read from, so MSOs are growing 7 times faster than those staples, down to, while price action obviously is annoying, I have no problem buying these businesses at current valuations. And again, plan accordingly for your own situation. I have not bought more shares of any of these MSOs. And while I was saying that I've been saving up cash to do so, I have yet to act because I was waiting on the potential of SAFE passing in the USICA and American Competes Act. Now we know that that is not going to pass. I am holding off and not in a rush to buy, but I still have cash loaded in order to eventually make that purchase at some point in the future once we get a bit of a clearer path forward. And so lastly, just to share his full disclosure, I own Cureleaf, Green Thumb, Verano, and TrueLeaf. I'm thinking about selling Verano and moving money into Columbia Care, which is being acquired by Cresco Labs, as current ARB spread allows you to effectively buy Cureleaf, Cresco Labs at a 15% discount, assuming the deal closes. And so while I have not decided, I might put some of my extra cash into Air Wellness or even Cureleaf if it dips down low enough at these prices. I might also consider putting it into Columbia Care, which will then convert to Cresco Labs and just bring down my average cost of my largest position already. So I have not decided yet, but as we unfortunately get the news that SAFE is not in the American Competes Act, it gives us more time to stack cash and accumulate if you think this is going to be a big industry in the future. And that is it for today's episode, folks. So I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I really hope you got some value out of it. What did you think of the stories mentioned? Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or suggestions, and I'd be happy to address them. But besides that, if you enjoyed this video or you learned something, please just leave a like on it. Subscribe below if you don't want to miss any future videos, and I will catch you on Wednesday for Midweek Update. Have a great weekend, everybody.